Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. Today, I have with me Samartha from Meta London. He works as a senior content design manager at Meta. I have a few questions for him with regard to AI. This meeting will be posted on Manage the Docs channel. Later, you can watch it. But thanks for joining this session. So, with that, Samarth, do you want to sort of introduce yourself a little bit and then we can get to the questions?
Sure, Akash, and thanks for having me. Uh, I'm Samarth, and as you said, I work with Meta London. And before I joined Meta, I was with Atlassian, and I built their first content design team in India. Even before that, I was with Expedia, the travel company, for about 2 years, and spent a decade with Adobe before that, where I
Cool.
was in all sorts of IC and leadership roles across a bunch of content disciplines. So yeah, I think that's what I do, and I have a engineering degree and a law degree, so I think that's just sort of a weird combination. So that's what I do. Yeah.
In a way, it's good that you have engineering and law degree because that helps you sort of bridge the gap between ethical AI, right?
Right, right.
So, what should be the rules for a tech industry? I think maybe with that
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
provide some more. So, yeah, let's get started with the questions that can help the leaders who will be part of this meeting or would be watching this
Right.
meeting later. Uh, I had a very broad question first. That which content types do you think are sort of easy to generate or augment using AI? What are your thoughts on that?
See, I think it's a very interesting question. So a lot of the content types we do depend on the context in which we create them, right? So if you look at the tech doc side of things, so it requires a deep understanding of the the product, right? The product
Mhm.
workflows, the user base, how users are going to use it, their mind frame, mindset, and so on. So unless that context is provided to an AI system, the content that it generates will be shallow,
Mm.
to say in the least, right? So I think it isn't about and any typical types of technical content that are easy to generate. It depends on what kind of context you provide to that system, right? For example, if you think of UX writing or content design, so sometimes the output might be just a single string, but the context that goes into it is very deep, right? So it takes multiple variations, multiple A/B tests, and so on to arrive at that one line that really clicks. So it's all about the context. I think yes, I mean AI is great for generating generic content. You have to write a letter, you have to write sort of communication, you have to write a blog post where the context is fairly simple. But anything else requires you to really provide it the right context and go deep into giving it the pieces of info or the pieces of details that it needs to really create the content that will work with the user. And even then, you have to test it out. You have to see how it works and go with what the user needs.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, that's those are great insights because I think context is so key. It's important to give the right context to AI. Otherwise, what you'll get out of it is going to be garbage or it won't be so relevant.
Right.
So cool.
Correct.
That's good. So, but at the same, like I talked about, that context is so important. How do you get the right information? How do you trust AI? That's another big question that everybody is asking. Sort of people talk about AI hallucinating, right? So, what are your thoughts around how can we ensure that our AI systems are ethical, they are fair, they're transparent, and kind of accountable?
Well, that's a huge question right now. That's a very broad question at this point in time and an open question as well. And I think at this point, what we see in the AI paradigm is the wild, wild west, right? So it's just come up and it's sort of, it's very sort of it's open to everybody. People are trying it out, people are creating stuff. But I think eventually where we will get is there will be a certain amount of regulation that will be around AI, right? It's already happening. So there are judgments being passed in different countries where there are questions being asked. Hey, for example, who owns the content that AI creates, right? I mean, is it really the property of the user who's creating it, or is it somebody else, right? But the bigger question is who will own the liability of what AI creates, right? For example, let us say you have the aerospace domain, where content is very critical to the operation of an aircraft, and it really is sort of critical to the health and safety and travel sort of what do we call it, right? So I mean, it really lives at risk there, right? When you have content. So who will own the liability of something going wrong there? Is it going to be the user who's creating it, the writer who's doing it? Is it going to be some company, the makers of the AI systems? So it's a very broad question at this point. But I feel that there will be regulation that ensures that whatever is created out of AI is done in ethical form, it is relevant, and it is safe to use.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think those are the key questions to address. And as you mentioned, and even in our company, we are just trying to figure out what would be the right level of ethical question answering that AI can provide you, right? It is not
Right.
always easy to get the authentic answer from AI systems, and owning that
Correct.
piece is going to be challenging. So, thanks
Correct.
for sharing that.
And
Okay.
so until that happens, right, until we have that regulation, until it becomes, something that is clear from a liability perspective, from a uh, ethics perspective, I think as users, we have to be mindful that we use it in an ethical fashion, right? So we own that responsibility, that duty of care towards creating content and using it in a fashion that is compliant with all the regulations that need to be met. And ultimately, I think if the liability is not clear, it's probably the user right now who has to morally own it. That's where I feel things are at this point in time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I think it is definitely everybody is accountable for it at the moment,
Yeah,
because we
yeah,
are the ones feeding the system. We are the one who has developed the system. We are training the system. So,
absolutely, absolutely.
cool. Thanks for sharing that. So,
Hmm.
based on that, I know this is what we are doing today. But
Yeah,
in the long term, how do you think the industry is going to change? What are your thoughts on that?
I see things, in a okay. So a few ways, right? So if I think you've led content teams for a long time, and I've been in this business for a while. As content leaders, we always feel that we don't have enough people or enough resources to do what we need to do, right? We're always outnumbered by cross-functional partners, by the tasks we need to do, by scrum teams, and so on. And I think what is important is that AI will help us bridge that gap. So here is an accelerant. Here is a technology that helps us accelerate the pace of what we are trying to do and really bridge the gap and maybe do things we have never been able to do as teams. So that's one. Secondly, I think I feel very excited about if there were a ethical, regulated, safe way of using using AI to harness the vast reams of user insights that companies have and surface them and use them for our content creation, which is not something that is very doable
Hmm.
purely through human effort right now. I remember, at an earlier company, we used to have a health system, and the health system used to have 600K plus comments every year. Now, how do you manage that kind of volume? How do you even read that kind of content with 20 people, 25 people, right? Which
Yeah.
is where the team was at that point in time. So what AI can help do is really read all of that, make sense out of that, and serve it in a safe form within the company for writers to consume and then create content
Yeah.
based on that. Right? So that's the other thing. The third thing is maybe stuff like discoverability of content, SEO, finding out gaps, right? Responding fast to those kinds of issues. So where sometimes writers don't have the time to constantly monitor stuff, and that's where AI could step in and help things. But these are just three examples of how I think the profession will change. Ultimately, I think we are entering a world where we will all have to baseline our content a bit higher, right? Because a lot of the tasks that are ground level that are simpler, we can like use AI and use it to automate and accelerate stuff, while we focus on higher value addition tasks which actually matter to the users. So I think it will free up time for those kinds of tasks. And it will also, as writers, as content folks, uh, push us all to upskill ourselves and really acquire new skills.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. In fact, when I was talking to one of the leaders very recently, early this week, she made an interesting point. She said that AI systems are going to stay here. They're not anywhere. They're not going anywhere. It will be people who are creative, intelligent, and are experienced. They will be able to make best use of these tools, because with experience you'll be able to ask the right kind of questions. It's not just enough to say
Right,
I use AI. How are you using AI? How best
right,
are you extracting from AI and being more productive, getting more done? That's what will set people apart. So I think that's where teams will have to start thinking of what they can do to be more productive
right,
and get more done.
right. I think one little point I want to make here is that we are all humans, right? We crave for connection, and communication is the primary way in which we connect, don't we?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, would users be interested in reading content that no human invested time in creating? Ultimately, I mean, users also expect that they be treated with care. They have some human at the other end who's looking at their issues and solving that, right? So that's where I think, our superpower as humans, the superpower of empathy steps in. We are humans. We know what other humans feel. We bring that to the table. We use that to create content. We use that to communicate and communicate context, right? And that's where I think we have to really use our superpower of empathy. But at the same time, once things change, they change forever. So that is also true. So it's good that we just accept this new technology, this new world as an accelerant for our profession, and really use it to build things that were not possible earlier.
Cool. I mean, those are all valid points. Great. Thanks. Really appreciate your time and you sharing all these insights. This will be super helpful for people who will be watching the video later. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.